Welcome. I see we're still having a number of people getting connected, but we'll go ahead and say welcome. Thank you for coming. And I'll ask Tony, our head of communications, to just share any technical details before we get started with the meeting.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you joining us today. To start, everyone is muted, but we still want to hear from you. You can use the chat to post any comments you may have during the presentation, as well as using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to share questions that you have or to upvote questions from other guests. If you run into any technical difficulties, feel free to message us in the chat, and we will work to figure that out. Or you can email eop.program@aspeninstitute.org. That's eop.program@aspeninstitute.org. If you want captions, click the CC button at the bottom of your screen. And to reiterate, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website within just a day or two, and everyone who registered will receive a copy through email. So, Dee, back over to you.
Thanks, Tony. So welcome, everybody. We're so glad you're joining us today to learn about the opportunity to become a partner of the Workforce Leadership Academies with the Aspen Institute. Make sure to drop in the chat where you're joining us from, and we're glad to have you here. And anybody coming to us from the Southeast Texas area, our thoughts are with you. Hope everything's okay after Beryl came through. I know I've got family in Houston, so I know I'm thinking about them right now. We are so glad you're here with us today. We're going to be talking about the opportunity to become a partner with the Workforce Leadership Academies. We are going to first, very simply, just spend some time giving a broad overview of the Workforce Leadership Academies, and then we're going a broad overview of the Leadership Academies and the Skills First orientation. Then we're going to dive a little bit more deeply into the details of what it means to be a partner with the cohorts of fellows that you'll be working with, and go over the specific application process and the timelines, and then have time for questions and discussion. But please go ahead and drop in the chat questions that you have as we go along. I'm joined today, I'm a senior fellow with the Aspen Institute's Economic Opportunities Program, and I'm joined today by Haley Glover, who is the director of Upskill America. And Haley, you can come on screen for the entire time if you want, as well as Amanda Fens, who is also part of the Economic Opportunities Program and is our research partner for the upcoming year. So let's go ahead and dive into what we're going to be talking about today. So the Workforce Leadership Academies are part of the Aspen Institute's Economic Opportunities Program. EOP has for over 2 decades now worked to address economic opportunity in our communities with strategies around supporting business ownership, with making sure that quality jobs are present for workers and companies, and also supporting the leaders who make the systems work that serve our citizens and the businesses in our communities. The Workforce Leadership Academies got started, I would say that it actually started in the early 2000s when the Aspen Institute started a Sector Skills Academy, where we brought people from around the country together in a fellowship program to learn about advancing sectoral employment strategies. And for years, those folks would say to us, we wish you could come home with us in our local communities so that we could share these tools and strategies with the people back home that we are actually going to be working with to advance these strategies. And so almost 2 decades ago, about 10 years ago, we started delivering local workforce leadership academies in 10 different communities around the country. So what is the Academy? What is WLA? What is the Workforce Leadership Academy? It's a 10-month fellowship program, a peer learning community where leaders in the local workforce development ecosystem come together and learn about applying a race equity lens to the work, a systems change lens to the work, develop personal leadership skills, and work together to learn about innovation and effective strategies in their community. These local cohorts of leaders, of 20 to 24 leaders, made up of people from across that broad workforce ecosystem that you see there: local government agencies, community-based organizations, community colleges, professional associations, industry alliances that come together to build a peer learning network for the advancement of the local workforce ecosystem. They work together addressing a variety of topics, 10 different themes that are all interwoven. That's why that spiral is in a circular notion, because it's all related, right? Race, equity, and employment, metrics and meaning, partnerships and collaboration, worker voice, systems thinking, leadership. And so they come together and they work in a series of retreats and topical workshop sessions and labs in an informal way where people are able to step out of their day-to-day and come together and learn together as leaders and build relationships that will serve them into the future for future collaboration and systems changes. We do this, the Academy does this based on a number of specific approaches and methods that are all aimed at providing an environment for people to come together and learn together, share with each other together, think big and think differently, and build ecosystem changes for the future. First of all, it's built around a set of retreats where people are actually taken out of their day-to-day in order to go someplace together and informally learn together, eat together, and start to take off their institutional hats and masks that they wear on a day-to-day basis. So there are opening and closing retreats that bookend a series of 5 topical workshop sessions on those different topics, as well as 5 labs that are related to the systems changes that they're working on. We also provide a number of organizational assessments and specific systems change tools that they can use within their own organizations and across the system for years to come to make it practical so that they can think about, how do I apply these different things that we're talking about and learning about. They learn about and learn with these things, not only from each other, but also with local guest faculty and a national guest faculty who come in and give the unvarnished story about the innovations that they're leading and the strategies that they've implemented. Throughout the curriculum is woven a race, equity, and employment lens so that people are equipped to look at labor market data, look at outcomes for programs, look at inequality that's happening across their ecosystem through a race equity lens. People also have the chance to self-select into teams to approach potential workforce ecosystem opportunities. And they self-select into teams that will research and eventually make recommendations to the broader community at the end of their fellowship year in their collaborative learning labs around ecosystem changes. And finally, they also have the opportunity to participate in a 360 leadership development assessment, where they have the chance as leaders to do some self-reflection and do some planning on their own leadership development. Leaders have told us from the beginning, and that people who are running elements of our workforce ecosystem, who are running organizations that are so committed to service to others, that they don't have the chance to step back and relax. and think strategically and think big. They don't have the chance to focus on themselves as leaders. And so that is something that's really important to us in the leadership academies, to provide that opportunity for leaders who have so much pressure on them. So we have been really excited about being able to provide this opportunity to fellows and partners in local communities. And in this coming year, we're really excited that with the generous support of Walmart, we're going to be able to embed skills first mobility strategies into the curriculum as you've seen it here, for both partners such as yourselves within your own organizations, as well as the fellows that you'll be convening within their own organizations, as well as with their employer partners. So I'm going to turn it over now to Haley Glover, who is head of EOP's Upskill America work, to share a bit about the skills first mobility emphasis that we'll have coming up. Haley, I don't
Sure.
see you there on screen.
I'm here, Dee. Can you
There you
see?
go.
Can you? Hey, hi everybody. It's great to see you. We always fingers crossed that the technology works. Well, it is great to be on with everybody here. I'm thrilled to see 100 folks on the line and really wonderful interest that we're seeing in the program. So we're thrilled to be injecting this remarkable WLA program with some skills first strategies. Before we get started actually on what is skills first, which don't read ahead, I'm wondering if Tony, can you pop up our first poll question? We have a first poll, which is how would you rate your knowledge and understanding of skills first strategy from very low to very high or an expert? We're just trying to take a temperature test here and would love to see your results here. So we'll give you a couple seconds to respond. And Tony, I'll ask you to take that down and show us those results as soon as we hit a critical mass. All right. And Dee, you may want to mute yourself, friend. Okay. All right. So we've actually got some experts in our midst. I'd love for you to raise your hands in the chat and let us know who you are. But overall, we're at about a moderate. That's really great information to have because there's always folks who need to learn as well as leaders who can help us get there. We're going to do one more question in a quick poll. And Tony, if you could put that one up. This is, what aspect of skills first are you most interested in learning more about and or implementing through WLA? We're going to be asking you, of course, to be learning about all of these strategies, but also to consider what makes the most sense in your environment and in your ecosystem. So you can see here that there's a number of strategies, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, that are part of the skills first agenda, all designed to create a degree of mobility and equity. So pick one of those. And I don't know yet is a very valid response. All right. Tony, if we can show those results, that would be super. Okay, we're seeing great, solid folks diversifying, expanding talent sourcing. That is really exciting. Supporting employees with coaching, mentoring, and training. Awesome to hear. I run an organization called Upskill America, so that's music to my ears. And quite a few folks with I don't know yet. That is great. Thank you so much. We're going to collect these results and we'll use them going forward. So Dee, if you could advance to the next slide. So what is skills first? Okay. Now, you probably read about it in the newspaper, and you've probably read about it in the context of companies removing degree requirements. Jobs that might have once required four-year degrees may not require them now. Skills First is actually a broader movement that tries to shift the entire talent management practice pipeline away from proxies and towards skills which are more objectively able to be measured. We say proxies, and those include some forms of degrees, right? Tenure requirements, specific job titles that have for many years, centuries, been hoarded or systematically denied to folks who are marginalized in many ways. The goals of Skills First are fundamentally to broaden and diversify talent pools. If you've hired for any role over the last several years, you've probably noticed, like, gosh, I wish I could find the talent I want, or I wish I could get a bigger flow of folks with more diverse experiences and backgrounds into this role. Skills First is theoretically a way of doing that. Another goal is to reduce the bias in hiring and talent management processes, because what we know about post-secondary attainment is that white Americans are much more likely to have a 4-year or advanced degree than folks of color. And that is because of how our systems have worked, not due to any sort of difference or deficit in those populations. We know that there is a lot of bias baked into hiring decisions and talent management processes. Skills are one way of reducing the decisions down to an objective and more equivalent basis to make those decisions. We see a lot of really big opportunities to increase the alignment between talent and jobs, right? How do people know what they're qualified for? How do employers know what they want? Again, by creating that lingua franca of skills, that common language that binds us all together, we see a lot of opportunity for alignment. Also, this opportunity of creating better business decisions, right? If you're looking for a skilled person and you know what those skills are and you know how to recognize them in someone, that ultimately is a better business decision, creating a better retention and creating value for the organization. And finally, this is also an opportunity creator, Skills First is, because there are many, many, many ways to gain skills, but there are very few of those ways that are recognized by hiring managers, right? We are just now getting to a stage where, military experience is viewed as on par with a college degree, right? Where high quality work experiences are beginning to be viewed as equivalent to learning that you gain in a classroom. And so ultimately, this is about improving opportunities for those who have encountered barriers to entry and advancement in the job market by, again, focusing on what we can measure and focusing on what people already have. So next slide really talks about what Skills First is not. I will go to my grave saying this. Skills First is not anti-college. And if anybody tells you that, you let me know and I'll talk to them. Skills First is reflection that college is a path to skills too, but there are many other ways of acquiring skills that are also on that path, right? So never, ever should we talk about college isn't worth it. We shouldn't go to college, because what we know is that the people who often receive that language and that guidance are folks who have been systemically denied access to high quality learning experiences in the first place, right? College will always be an option for wealthy white folks. We should continue to make it an option for everyone. That said, it's not the only path anymore. Skills First is not anti-college. It just is more inclusive pathway to skill development. Skills First isn't a panacea. It's not going to solve many, many of the really, difficult challenges and systemic barriers within companies and within our society. And it can't compensate for bias, right? In fact, what we worry about sometimes is, what other ism replaces, the elitism that you may lose when you hire based on a degree as opposed to skills. What other thing might replace that? What other bias might creep in? And so it's not a panacea, but it's a good step in the right direction. And also what we're learning is that it's not easy, but it is worth it. We are still building the tech, the systems to support that scaled adoption and implementation of Skills First practices. So Dee, if you can advance. What we do know is that there's some emerging really solid evidence for why Skills First is transformational, can be transformational. We know that taking somebody who is already an incumbent worker and providing them with a skills pathway so they can acquire the necessary competencies and skills is a much more cost-effective model than going unicorn hunting, as a colleague of mine used to call it, trying to find that person on the outside. So internal skills development is a more cost-effective measure than external hiring. We know that skills-first hiring can often happen faster because you're relying on fewer proxies. Employers who are finding talent using skills are 60% more likely to find a successful hire than those who are not using those skill strategies. So think about your own replacement rates and that of those of your partners. If you can reduce those rates, that's money in the bank. We know that skills-based hiring is actually more predictive of future success than hiring based on a candidate's education. So when you hire for that alignment between skills that you possess and skills the job requires, that's actually a really solid strategy, and is really one that you could tie directly to future performance in the role. And then finally, we also know that skills first is one of those fraud mitigation techniques. 70% of respondents to a survey I came across a little while ago indicate that they've lied on their resume about responsibilities, titles, dates, and skills at a cost of about $600 billion a year to employers. Now, when you hire somebody based on skills, things that they can demonstrate, and as we move forward on our technology, skills that are validated and verified, we have a real opportunity to reduce fraud and also elevate folks with real skills. So I think we've got one more slide here. What we're hoping out of this engagement, we're introducing and sort of understanding and encouraging workforce organizations, which is denoted, are employers themselves, right? And often lack focus from the philanthropic community and their own personnel and HR and investment in that way. We're hoping to really hasten and deepen shifts towards skill first amongst your organizations and within your partnerships. We really want to understand over the next year or two, what are the benefits of these shifts to you, right? You employ a lot of people and you help a lot of people. And so what do you need in order to maximize those benefits for yourselves and for the people you serve? And we also want to really utilize this proven collaborative model to build capacity in this focus area. It's not going away. Our labor shortages are only going to get more intense as the workforce ages and our population shrinks. And so we're really excited about this opportunity to use Skills First as a way of adding value to your partnerships, but also leveraging this amazing collaborative approach to get this work done. So I'll pause there. And I'll be on and happy to address any questions. But Dee, thank you so much for the opportunity to support your work.
We're really excited about the chance to integrate this into the work. And I think there's just so much potential for us to learn from and with these new partners that will be joining us, as well as their fellows. And about those partners, I just wanted to take a minute and gush about how amazing our partners were in this last round of academies. And this last year was the first time that we'd had the chance to have an open invitation for communities that are interested in being Academy partners. And we were able to work with 8 amazing organizations, from think tanks partnering with community college to statewide workforce practitioner associations, to funding organizations, the United Way, a community foundation, to a workforce board in Texas, and to an actual chamber of commerce in Memphis, Tennessee. Such an amazing group of partners who took on the task of convening local cohorts of fellows of 20 to 24 people. And then at the end of this past year, collectively graduated 173 fellows around the country who joined our National Network of Economic Opportunities Fellows. And I see Keisha Williams is here with us, who's an alum of Southeastern Pennsylvania. So glad to see you here joining us. I think we've had some other alums online as well. So thank you for joining us and supporting us. These fellows gave us feedback throughout the year. We constantly asked for feedback and shared that, for example, they were able to deepen their networks and partnerships. They were able to look at their work through a race equity lens in a new way. They were able to self-reflect on how they're doing things and change the way that they're interacting in the system. And there are just some quotes there on that screen. If you can see it, I'll just give you a second to look at some of the things that fellows said. It just really lands so deeply with me that they are willing to share how they changed throughout the year. And I love that final one where someone said that they have hope now that systems change is possible in their communities. Because as you know, as leaders in the community, this work is really, really hard. And it's so wonderful to have a community of support as you're working to change things for the better for the people and businesses and communities that you serve. So, and this is all in the request for applications, the RFA, that you can read as well. But this is a general overview of the different activities and the timeline that partners conduct for their fellows. That top row are all of the various activities that engage fellows, from putting together an advisory council, who are your advocates within the community, and helping with recruitment, through selecting the fellows, through delivering the retreats, the workshop sessions, and finally the stakeholder presentation where they make their recommendations for systems change. The bottom is the support that you will receive from Aspen in terms of technical assistance for delivering all of this. And so let's talk about what are the different things that are involved with your engagement as a partner. So here's the things that you would be responsible for doing. Developing advisory council, who are your advocates and navigators within the larger ecosystem. You will actually deliver all of the sessions, both in person and virtual. You will build community amongst the fellows, and including communicating between sessions and helping with connections and networking. You will manage all logistics for meeting delivery, including advisors, including managing guest faculty, reimbursement and honoraria, and you'll coach your collaborative learning lab teams as they go through their research and make their recommendations. Now, in terms of support, what will you receive from Aspen to do this? You will receive a $50,000 challenge grant that will go towards the remaining of your overall budget. It's typically ranged overall around $160,000 to deliver an academy. The primary elements of cash outlay have to do with the meeting expenses. The RFA goes into a lot of detail about the specific tasks for your facilitation team and where the primary costs are. You will also be able to take advantage of a fellows application platform that Aspen will provide for you, so that applicants in your local community use that platform. It then helps organize your advisors as you're doing the selection. You'll receive all the materials, including all the annotated agendas, the tools, the handouts, for every activity that's involved in the academy, from sessions to labs to advisory council meetings. Aspen will also provide centralized evaluation for feedback for your continuous improvement. You'll have templates for communication externally, from press releases announcing your academy to communication, recruiting your advisory councils. And then you'll have ongoing technical assistance from Aspen, including bi-weekly coaching meetings. Our entire facilitation team community will come together monthly so that you can have some peer learning as you are delivering the academy. And there's an intensive in-person training retreat before you actually start your academies, where we'll come together and have a similar kind of experience that you'll be providing for your fellows in terms of a retreat and activities, and you'll learn about actually delivering elements of the academy. And then at the end of the day, you'll receive Creative Commons license to use the curriculum as you go forward in your communities. Here's a picture of some of the wonderful facilitators and facilitation teams that were part of this past year's Academy Network. And I can talk about what it's like to support the facilitation teams and our amazing partners, but I'd love to turn it over now to Alex Breen from Corporation for a Skilled Workforce. I'm looking for where he is in the picture. There he is in the center in the flag, appropriate right after 4th of July. So glad to have you with us, Alex. And I'd just like to have you share with our folks here online about your experience with the Academy.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here. I should say that I went through the New York iteration of the Academy, and it was really career changing in the sense that, I started out a frontline workforce practitioner. Actually, the perversity of my first job title was that I was a part-time retention specialist. And I didn't really come into this with a master's degree or an expansive network of peers, and found the Academy experience as a participant to be transformative. And when the opportunity opened up to become a facilitator, it was something that was an absolute no-brainer. I should say, inspiration behind CSW deciding to implement an academy was two unique threads. The first was listening sessions that we did with workforce development professionals across the country that spoke extensively about the feeling of being really, really burnt out and feeling as though, the pandemic, and I can reflect upon my own experience, felt more like it was doing FEMA relief work than it did even being a workforce development practitioner. And then Corporation for a Skilled Workforce had worked with the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit on a really comprehensive plan for the future of that ecosystem, and investing significantly in developing the abilities and the social capital of practitioners that were already applying their trade was something that was absolutely at the forefront of what we hope to achieve. Corporation for a Skilled Workforce had been doing work across the state of Michigan for more than 3 decades. And we kind of had connections with practitioners at the community college level and public workforces, people even occupying positions at literacy centers, and of course at national organizations that had an imprint in Southeast Michigan. And the Academy experience was unsurprisingly transformative for the peers that were involved. I should say things that really stood out were people feeling, a quote that emerged from a Leadership 360 session was, "There's no position that is more lonely than that of being a leader." And we provided a place for people to come together, not with their organizational teams thinking about deepening the impact of the work or resolving pain points, as is the nature of our workforce benchmarking networking work, which brings together people in organizational teams. But this was a focus on people first and treating people as individuals who are prized assets of local workforce ecosystems, who are deserving of investments and of time away from their day-to-day responsibilities, to focus on themselves first and their organization second. And I think both individuals and the organizations could not have really benefited more from the experience. And Dee, I don't know if you want to tee me up a couple of questions. I don't know if you want me to kind of continue on my soapbox. I'm happy to proceed either way.
Well, I'd love to hear about, as a partner, what did CSW get out of being a partner delivering an academy? What led you to that? And what was the experience like for you as a facilitator? What did CSW get out of it?
Yeah, there was an enormous, we, over the course of, 8 to 9 months, facilitated more than 65 hours of sessions. And I can safely say that we learned significantly more from the peers in the room than I think, that they learned from us. Although, I think some people that might be a contentious statement depending on the fellow who you ask. But yeah, I think for us as an organization, we developed a group of 21 allies that are really interested in doing everything they can to help achieve a more just, more equitable Southeast Michigan workforce ecosystem. I think people that really fully understand the levers of change and the relationships, tactics, labor market information, and concepts that are required to change systems that have not meaningfully moved the needle for many, many populations in more than 3 decades. And I think for the fellows themselves, they gained, I mean, I'm just thinking about, I briefly was added to a group meet that was started by our members. And I mean, when people were in the thick of things, whether it be the end of the fiscal season, you would see the 200 to 300 messages being exchanged daily among peers who are looking for emotional support, looking for connections, looking to find their next job and opportunity. And I think, Southeast Michigan was really at risk of losing generations of professionals as a result of, just the nature of doing this work. And I think, giving people connections, giving people space to recharge, giving people, access to best and promising practices and national peers. These are the kinds of investments that are required to maintain and to grow generations of workforce professionals. And, I think we did a really good job kind of collectively identifying what needs to change, some of the strategies that can be employed to support that change, and then to really kind of start painting the future forward for what are kind of like the next steps and actions that key interested parties can take to help achieve that.
I'm really grateful for the voice that you've shared as a leader in this work. And in the chat, you'll see a link to a recent blog that Alex wrote about how CSW incorporated worker and learner voice into their academy and into the Collaborative Learning Lab recommendations. That is an opportunity that local partners have to make sure to customize the curriculum to their local context. And CSW did a really remarkable job of doing that. And so I encourage you to please read his blog. And thank you, Alex, for doing that. We hope with our partners to amplify the voice and celebrate the work that you're doing through Aspen's communications channels, because we believe it is so important to continue to spread the message of how important it is for our workforce of our own, to develop its leaders and to invest in ongoing capacity building. So we are looking for partners who are interested in having their work amplified through Aspen's channels as well. So Alex, what plans do you have for the future of any additional academy work?
Yeah, I think we've been having a lot of really active conversations throughout Southeast Michigan. And I mean, there's certainly the appetite among practitioners. And I can say that we've received close to 100 emails from individuals that are saying, we've heard really great things from a peer, from an old supervisor, or we've read a blog or a collab systems change recommendation report, and this is something that we want to participate in. So I think, continuing to explore opportunities in Southeast Michigan. I know we're also doing some really meaningful work in places like Philadelphia. We're, I think, going to be launching some project work in Massachusetts and Boston. And those are both areas where we have staff residing there with deep knowledge of local systems or deep connections to the work, and represent opportunities to kind of replicate a proven mechanism in a new locality. And then we're also toying with a concept for individuals that aren't far along yet, or more so like early career workforce development professionals, just kind of recognizing that Workforce Professionals Training Institute report Voices of the Frontline from a couple of years ago that spoke to, about 60% of frontline practitioners saying, I'm not sure I'm still going to be working in the field in 2 years. And we thought that this was a mechanism and a product of bringing together the individual outside of their organization to focus on, again, social capital building, greater knowledge and recognition of leadership practices, and kind of like development of those core kind of workforce theory skills. I think that's something that is we're uniquely positioned to deliver, and something that we feel the field is very much needed right now.
Thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate your sharing your perspectives. Now, CSW is a national organization that works in a number of communities. That's one model of partners that we've had. We've also had the pleasure to work with not only organizations that are specific to a single community, but an organization like the Center for the Future of Arizona that works on behalf of all Arizonans. And Holly Kurtz is here with us as well, one of our amazing partners who's delivered academies. And Holly, thank you for being here. And I'd love to hear about what you guys are thinking about doing with the curriculum now that you have the rights to it after being a partner.
Great. Thanks, Dee. Feel very honored to be here and excited for everybody who's joined today to learn more about the opportunity. Just quick background, Center for the Future of Arizona, big name. Essentially, our mission is to bring Arizonans together to create a stronger and brighter future for our state. We do that in 3 areas: K-12 education, workforce development, and civic health and engagement. So within the workforce development realm, the Aspen Institute Workforce Leadership Academies was a perfect fit for what we had identified for many of the reasons that Alex talked about. What we had identified was a gap in the workforce ecosystems across the state of Arizona. And that was, as the article that Dee and Sheila penned earlier this year, that the shoemaker's children go without shoes. So workforce development professionals go without their own development, and yet they're focused on that for all others. And so we saw this was a great opportunity and a gap in our state to introduce the Leadership Academy. As we were coming out of COVID, we did our first one in the greater Phoenix area. It was 100% virtual, which was interesting. All of us were doing that, but we did it. And we graduated from fellows from that. And then we were a participant, as Dee indicated, in the expansion last year's academy, and did one in the southeastern, or what we call southwest area, or southern Arizona area, with the primary focus around Tucson, but any of the communities in southern Arizona, and also graduated our fellows in December. As I said, we saw this as an opportunity to work at the ecosystem level, whether that's systems level change, race equity, learner, worker, employer voice, bringing those all to the table. So the modules that Dee shared with all of you were a perfect fit for us, helping our ecosystem think more strategically and broadly and systemically about the opportunities for change. Our goal is to continue to expand. So for example, in Southern Arizona, we've already decided that 1 year we'll do an academy. The second year, and this is the second year, we'll help implement, find homes for the collab recommendations to be able to move them to action, with the help of a very wonderful advisory council, such a critical part of the academy, both for us doing it in Phoenix and Southern Arizona. And then the next year we'll do another academy. So that's our plan for the pattern in Southern Arizona. We're hoping to get funding to be able to do some other academies across the state: Northern Arizona, Flagstaff, western side, Yuma, and potentially another Phoenix one. Again, for all the reasons that Alex said, in terms of really investing in developing our workforce development professionals, who are oftentimes forgotten about in that journey. So that's just a little bit about our approach.
Thank you, Holly. We're so grateful for the work that you continue to do on behalf of the field. Thank you, both Alex and Holly. And like I said, we had some really incredible partners this past year. I think we'll be able to find 3 more this year. I'm sure we will be able to. And let me tell you what we're looking for in partners. So our criteria for identifying new partners to deliver academies include strategic alignment. We are looking for organizations to partner with who have a deep understanding of their local ecosystems, are committed to racial equity, and committed to skills-based mobility within their ecosystems. We're looking for organizations that have a credible convening capacity, that is, can attract a cross-section of leaders from across the workforce ecosystem and operate as a neutral stakeholder and support coalitions to set agendas and meet goals. We're looking for facilitation capability. Have you organized community events, or do you have the capacity to manage an ongoing learning community? And also the capacity and capability to actually come up, generate the necessary matching funds to the Aspen's $50,000 grant that you'll start with in order to host all elements of the Academy. Here's what the application process looks like. After today's webinar, the intent to apply form, which is a survey, will be due at the end of July, on July 30th. Please review the whole request for applications before you do that. Like I said, it has even more detail about what it's like and what it takes to deliver an academy. By August 9th, we will notify those whom we will invite to submit a full proposal. And then August 26th, the full proposals will be due. The intent to apply, the request for applications also has all the questions that are in the intent to apply form, as well as all the questions that will eventually be on the full proposal. So you can see upfront what will be asked of you. And then by September 13th, the new partners will be notified, and we'll start working with you very soon after that with our first facilitators forum so that you can start the launch of your academies, including selecting fellows by the winter and then participating in the partners facilitation teams training retreat in March of 2025. And these are the questions that are on the intent to apply form. So we are asking questions to get to know you, essentially. We will ask for an organizational overview. We will ask about the strategic alignment. How do you engage with your workforce ecosystem? How are you advancing racial equity within your communities and within your organizations? We want to learn from you about your interest and maturity in skills-based mobility approaches. Just a rating of what your own organization as a partner's maturity and what your ecosystem's maturity in those strategies that Haley described, and then what your own organization's interest in advancing those strategies, and what kind of urgency does your ecosystem have around those different work skills first mobility strategies. There are no correct answers. There are no right answers to these. We're looking to put together a peer learning community where people can learn from each other, and we can learn from you about what it takes to advance these strategies. And then finally, facilitation capacity. Tell us about convenings that you've had and what are some of the potential matching sources that you have in mind for building out the rest of your budget beyond the challenge grant. There's also a budget template so that you can see the cost categories. This is not due until and unless you're invited to submit a full proposal, but you have access to this so that you can work with it and have a sense of the financial investment that it might take. There are formulas embedded into the budget template, which build up to a full budget summary so that you can have a sense of the expenses and costs. And again, in the RFA, it goes into a lot of detail about the different ways that you might configure funding or providing in kind for these different elements. So we've come to the end of what I would share with you, and we have time now for questions. Also, let me make note, I'm available. We're available after this meeting over the next few weeks if you want to schedule a time to chat, to come up with it, to talk about any questions that arise as you do this work. Finney, have any questions come in?
Yes, a few questions. So I can start in the order that they were submitted. Our first question is, are we eligible to accept applications from Canada?
Not with this particular round. We have had in the past academies in Toronto. It is unlikely that we'll be able to go outside of the US with these 3 slots that we do have. Thank you for that question.
The following question, are we selecting regional areas first or deciding the regional areas based on where the applicants and selected fellows reside?
You will select the area that the academy will serve, and then you will reach out to recruit and select fellows. So your area might be in, as Alex's example, in the Detroit in the Southern Michigan region, or you might be in a city like Baltimore. But you will select where your academy will serve first, and then you will reach out for advisors and fellows from that area.
And now from the Q&A, we have a clarifying question. So partners must apply, and then partners will conduct outreach to create a local advisory council composed of fellows. Just want to make sure I understand correctly is the question.
So sorry about all the terms. So the partners who are conducting the academies will create a local advisory council. And then together with that advisory council, you will recruit potential fellows who are the people who make up your cohort of 20 to 24 people who will go through this 10-month peer learning experience together.
Okay. Is this opportunity open to small nonprofits that don't have large bank accounts or paid staff?
Yes, we don't have any criteria for size of your organization or size of your budget. We're looking for strategic alignment and the ability to manage the funds and conduct a full academy.
Are
Absolutely.
funding partners required to be part of the coalition applying? For example, can workforce orgs and community orgs apply without a local funder in the group?
Right, exactly. The local funders that you will be activating support the work, but they will not be delivering the academy. It's the local partners that will be delivering the academy. And so you do not have to have a funding partner as part of the academy delivery.
Do we only work with large, highly resourced cities, or could smaller metro areas be selected, or rural areas?
Absolutely, we are open to all types of localities and geographies, and we want to have some diversity in that, right? We were very pleased to work with Northeastern Pennsylvania in this last round, which was led by the Scranton Area Community Foundation to learn about how they are working across a more rural region and a smaller city, all the way to larger cities like Baltimore, like I said. So we're very, very interested in maybe not the usual suspects.
Question, is a 501c designation required for the lead agency?
Your organization might not be a 501c3. So for example, some funding organizations might not be a 501c3. Who is not eligible are for-profit corporations and individual consultants. So the specific designation may be different depending on what kind of organization you are, but for-profit organization and independent consultants are not eligible to apply. So don't discount yourself depending on what your designation is.
And lastly, could a consortium of regions be considered a lead applicant?
That could very well be possible. What you need to keep in mind is that the cohort of fellows need to be from a specific region. So a specific area where they will be and have been working together on a regional workforce ecosystem. And so it's not designed to be, for example, a statewide academy with people from around the state making up your cohort of fellows, but more for a cohort of fellows that are working within a specific region. And this might be a question where you want to have a call and have a chat, so we can talk about your specific characteristics, because your consortium might be focusing on a specific region. But just keep in mind that you want a cohort of fellows that can reasonably be expected to continue to work together on one specific regional ecosystem.
We do have more questions actually in the chat. How have other partners secured the matching funds?
Oh, it's been a wide variety. It's been really interesting. Different communities are so different. We've had partners who have raised funds from local governments as part of their funding, from their workforce agency, from the economic development agency, from the county commission. We've had partners who have essentially used some of their own ongoing funding as part of the match, because their organization is charged with delivering workforce services and working at the ecosystem level. So they've allocated their funding for this period towards the local match. We've had businesses actually be part of the investment for the local match. And of course, local foundations, sometimes local foundations, sometimes organizations are working with national funders that they receive investments from, and they're able to allocate towards this. So wide variety. And yes, so WIOA and public funding has counted towards the remaining 100, towards the full 160.
And final question, can the cohort be virtual?
The cohort has to have at least in-person opening retreat, closing retreat, stakeholder event, and at least one person in a workshop session and lab. So we were, as Holly had mentioned, we did do an academy that was 100% virtual simply because of the circumstances, but we have found that nothing replaces the in-person connection. And so the retreats are definitely in-person overnight retreats. And our local partners will have the discretion to determine beyond that what mix of virtual and in-person sessions and labs that they want to do. And that'll be part of your planning process once we select partners. So I think the question about a smaller region with no community or local foundations, there are all sorts, like I mentioned, there are all sorts of ways that different partners have put together the remaining funding from public and private and philanthropic sources, sometimes from one main source, sometimes from several different sources that are put together the remaining budget.
Another question in the chat. Are there only 8 partners, or did you only show last year's class? Will partners from last year continue the work, or is it just for 1 year?
That group of 8 partners was last year's last round's partners. This year we're having 3 more partners. Before we had the open RFA process, we worked in 14 other communities before that, but we didn't do it in the same manner in which we're doing it now, where we're providing the partners with the license to the curriculum, providing training to the curriculum, et cetera. You can see on our website all of the previous communities that we've been in. Oh, I see that we're at time. Oh, sorry. So if there are other questions that we didn't get to, please include those in our follow-up messages going out. This recording will be posted on the website and sent out to you. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with me at d.wallace@aspeninstitute.org if you want to schedule some time to chat. So thank you very much for everyone who joined us. I look forward to talking with you and learning from you as we go through the letter of intent process and the application process. So Haley, Tony, anyone, did I forget anything? Yep. All right. Thank you all so much. Looking forward to talking with you.